is always trying to balance the electrical charge and chemical levels and never really getting there completely.
This is synaptic resonance. It is a neural vocoder-style effect, but not in the most straightforward way. One of my favorite classes at university, about 25 years ago now, was neuropsychology. I got a bit obsessed with the idea that a living cell is always trying to balance electrical charge and chemical levels and never really getting there completely. If one thing becomes more stable, something else usually gets a bit messier. This has sort of been a life philosophy of mine since then. And this plugin uses those ideas for audio. At its core, Synaptic Resonance takes incoming audio or a sidechain and uses it to excite a two-dimensional neural simulation. That simulation is then read somewhere else and used to animate a bank of 40 steep resonant bandpass filters. The input excites the model. That is why it does not really behave like a normal vocoder or just a filter bank. The signal flow itself is simple enough. Input gain controls the level into the effect path. Model in controls how hard the incoming audio drives the simulation. If sidechain is enabled, the sidechain excites the model instead, while the main input is still the sound being filtered. Then at the end, you have dry, wet and output gain. The unusual part is really the two planes. There is a stimulation plane, which decides where and how energy enters the neural lattice. And there is a read plane, which decides where the plugin reads that activity back into the filter bank. Both planes have the same controls: position, angle, spin, tilt, range and rate. The movement controls are honestly unusable most of the time, but sometimes they lead to a happy accident, and those can be very good. For this whole control group, the randomize button is worth trying. Play around with it a bit. You might just strike a surprise. Then there is the behavior of the simulation itself. You have controls like stimulus, excitability, spread, charge, imbalance, recovery, inhibition, and memory. I'm not going to go through these one by one like a manual, but roughly speaking, excitability decides how readily the model reacts. Spread decides how far activity travels. Memory and imbalance keep things hanging around after the initial hit. Recovery and inhibition stops it from just sitting open all the time. This is the simulation, and these controls is how you steer its movements. Then there are also more direct audible character controls. Transfer controls how strongly the neural activity opens the filter bank. Conductance affect the overall openness and movement of the resonator. Discharge make the spike events hit harder. Homeostasis at higher settings makes the whole thing more controlled and stable. Lower setting let its instability and small electrical variation creep in. So it's basically a stability control in a plugin built around the idea that stability is really not the goal. What you see behind the control is the actual lattice activity. Brighter nodes mean stronger activity. The stim and read planes are drawn directly over the lattice in a color matching its controls. This way you can see where the model is being excited and where the sound is read back from. You can also see the reaction of the bands as movements on the plane. In many cases it makes most sense to keep them close together, but not always. In practice, I can say that Synaptic Resonance make one damn fine vocoder, but that is kind of crossing a river to get water. There are much simpler ways to get to a similar place, but that is also to miss the point entirely. The point is rather that it gets there by passing sound through a model with charge, inhibition, fatigue, memory recovery, and a constant attempt at balance that never quite settles. Most of the time, This is more of an art object than a sensible utility plugin. But it's a beautiful experiment, and it carries a lot of my personality in it. When fed the right sources, it can really transform sound in the most unexpected ways. If you think this sounds interesting, check out unusable.net for more information. Thanks for watching.